Hi there, my name's Jim. This is my shed and you're welcome to it. Well, hello. Fancy meeting you here. What are the chances, eh? Let's just pretend for a moment that my sparkling personality isn't enough to keep you glued to your phone or TV or computer or laptop, whatever it is you're watching this on. And let's just say, if you're interested in how Project Pug's coming along and you want to see me extending some shafts, cutting some holes, shaping some metal, drilling some holes, painting some bits, even bending a few pipes up actually today, then stick with it. You never know, you might enjoy it. Any comments, please feel free. All comments welcome. And to keep the algorithm happy, I think I have to say like and subscribe. And you can smash the subscribe button all you like, or you can just tap the like button, whatever. I don't mind. So I think without further ado, and stop me rambling at absolute nonsense, let's crack on. So here you can see where I've reinforced the seats around the mounting holes by riveting on these alley discs, riveting through onto the inside so that the domes are on the inside where you're sitting, so it won't affect that. And although this mounting point obviously is protruding beyond the seat, when I made the mounts I left an allowance to have a plastic washer in between the two, so this will merely take up. Probably the rivet heads are a little thicker than I was allowing for, but there's enough flex in various things that I'll be able to put just a little spacer on there, that thickness, and the mounting plate will sit flush there. So I'd say that's a job done. Onto the subframe now, I think. But before we do that, I thought we'd take a look underneath the car so you can see what's been going on there. Okay, so I apologise for the appalling filming, but I think you'll see why I don't show when I'm working under here. Okay, so fuel tank's back in with the ethanol resistant fuel lines. I've got my 100 micron pre-filter, my fuel pump, and then the fuel lines run down clip to the floor, and you can see everything painted underneath, and the return line back into the tank. So there you go, just proof that something has been done under the car. And moving on into the engine bay, so you can see where the lines come up, and then I decided to put the proper fuel filter under the in the engine, under the, because it came with these spring clips, although actually the ones that this filter came with were made out of cheese, so they didn't actually spring at all, so they were pretty hopeless. But I got some new ones, and there, so that's clipped on there, and also, and then there's the return line, so the pressure regulator goes up here, so then the return line back down under. I routed the lines down the middle of the car, because although they might seem to be slightly vulnerable underneath the car, I was trying to figure out where to put them, because if I went this side, it might interfere with where the steering column is going to come through, and if I point this side, I'm not exactly sure where the gear change is going to come through. So I figured if I put them in the middle, they'll clear everything. So yeah, that's fuel lines pretty much done. A few clips missing, but yeah, it's all in. And this time we are getting on with the subframe, I promise. So here's the subframe all cleaned up and dried off. I must admit, when I bought it, it was all covered in crud and I thought it was a bit ropey. I thought I might have to do a bit of repair work here and there, but having cleaned it up and dried it off, it's lovely. There's not much wrong with it at all, just a bit of surface rust, so clean that up, bit of rust converter, dosh of black paint, it'll be lovely. So very happy with that. So obviously I've painted the subframe. I'm just starting to bolt the steering rack onto it. There are a couple of spacers that go through and reinforce the subframe, stop it crushing when you do the bolts up. And of course I couldn't use the steel ones and had to make some lightweight alley ones. So here I am mocking up the steering column to try and figure out where it goes through the bulkhead. It's quite important I get this right, so I couldn't possibly make a mistake. So obviously, having chopped everything about, moved things and shortened things, the lower column's going to need extending. So here I am just measuring how much it needs extending by. So having hacksawed through that steering column, it was clear that it wasn't just an ordinary piece of mild steel, so I thought I'd better make the extension piece out of something a little bit stronger. So I got a bit of EN24. Unfortunately, turning a tougher material like that really showed up the limitations of my lathe and the tooling. Not that it's impossible to do, but it just takes time because you can't take heavy cuts because the belts slip and they get chatter and all sorts of things. So as I say, really showed up the limitations of my little lathe, but we got there and you can see the extension piece came out quite nicely in the end. So I used a template that I made way back to mark out the hole for the grommet, and I cut it out by chain drilling all the way around the outside, and now I'm just smoothing it off with my little grinder here, then moving on to an angle grinder and finally filing it all so you can see. So I've got a nice finish, but you can see here where obviously that first hole was in the wrong place and there's a bit I'm going to have to weld up. And there we are, we have steering. Obviously when I crossed my fingers when I drilled this hole, I wasn't lucky enough, so never mind. I'll just have to weld it up when I weld this one. So but for now the grommet's in, steering column's in, and all connected up inside. So plenty of engagement in the steering column, the clamp up here, so no problem with that, and plenty of clearance on the brake pedal. So yeah, we're all good. Well, I must say I'm really quite pleased with the progress over the last couple of weeks. Actually got quite a bit done. So underneath's pretty much done, with the pipes in, the subframes in, steering column on, steering working. Now I know I've sort of said steering's all done. In terms of the columns done, yes. That bottom UJ is pushed to pretty much to the limit in terms of angle. I think it's about a 45-degree U-joint angle, which I mean, you can push UJs further than that, but I don't really want to. It doesn't look right. So if it was any more than that, I would have to put another joint in there to lessen the angle. But I think it'll be okay as it is. It all seems to turn fine, no binding up or anything. So yeah, I'm happy with that. Where the grommet's in, it's not quite right, but as I've got to weld up the top bit where I drilled the hole out of place, just in the first point, my fingers crossed didn't work, obviously. Yeah, it's got to weld that up anyway, so I'll put a tab at the bottom so that the bottom can locate better, because at the moment it's just trying to pop out. But I can just weld a bit in and it'll locate better and seat better. But that'll be for another video. It's all fine. In terms of finishing, I've had comments from people saying, you know, why don't I just pull the whole thing apart completely and spray it all inside and out? And A, if I do that, it just adds so much time to the job, and B, I don't really like doing body work. I haven't got the patience to do a good enough finish to make it good enough. So it would always be a compromise. So basically, my standard finishing is just, as long as it's all one colour, more or less, that'll do me. So it's all rust proofed, and you know, I'm not making a concours car. You know, as far as you could go with, you know, do a full build and then strip it all down and then paint everything and then put it back together. There's always going to be bits you're going to be changing afterwards, so it's never going to be 100% perfect. So you know, to save all that, don't even try and be perfect. Just say, made good, one colour, not going to rust, I'm happy with that. So I know some people may disagree and think that's just daft and maybe lazy. Maybe it is a bit lazy, but in that regard I am. I hope I'm making up for it in detail in other areas, sort of less aesthetic, more performance based. So trying to keep things light and just getting it actually up and running. So yeah, I mean, make all the comments you want about finishing, but in terms of bodywork, that's pretty much where it is. Yeah, so subframe in means the next job, I think, is going to be stripping the engine. So when I've got that stripped, I can, as I said before, I can get the gearbox bolted on, mock it up in place, look at where the gear linkage is going to come through the bulkhead, and start fabricating the centre console. It won't be the centre console now, will it? But the frame next to the driver that's going to take the gear stick and the handbrake, and making the gear linkage, and then making the engine mounts and getting all that sorted. So yeah, I think quite exciting progress, really. I must say I'm a little concerned. The noises coming out about the you know, how stringent people have been about modified cars and things like that. I mean, years ago, you just, as long as you got an MOT, that was it, you were good to go. You know, the police might bother you if you were really taking the piss, but basically, as long as you basically met constructions and use regulations and the car got an MOT, that was it, you could drive it. Now it all seems to be getting a bit tougher. I've got a few years left until it's 40 years till it's MOT exempt, but even then, you know, is the DVLA going to consider that I've modified it too far, and then it's going to have another registration, and they're going to have to meet all sorts. It's going to turn into a can of worms. So I am just doing it for a project. I think I've said before that driving is not top of my list of priorities, although this one I would like to be honest. It'll be a laugh. at least get it out on a couple of track days or something and down the strip just to see what it does. But yeah, in terms of driving it day to day, just be too scared of bending it, to be honest, or blowing something up. So yeah, it's all a bit worrying, especially if Labour win the election. You don't know what's going to happen. I mean, just things aren't going to get better anyway, let's put it that way. All the things that are wrong with the country are just going to get worse faster. It's not going to be a change of direction, because I think, I don't know if everyone agrees that we've got a uni party at the moment. Doesn't matter who you vote for, you get the same thing pretty much. Certainly happened recently, and there were stories about civil servants blocking things, and you know, if you watch David Starkey. He makes the whole thing much clearer than I ever could. So I definitely recommend. Certainly his last video was quite moving, really, in some ways. Hopeful, maybe, but yeah, certainly thought-provoking. I guess on that note, I'll say ta-da for now. Yeah, good progress. Plenty to be getting on with. So I think a couple of weeks should have have the engine stripped and maybe mocked up in place with the gearbox on. Who knows? We'll see where we get to. But I'll just say for now, cheers. Cup of tea in my Tim Hortons coffee mug. Good health, and I'll see you in a couple of weeks.